In 1989, American documentary filmmaker Michael Moore made his directorial debut with the film Roger and Me. For much of the film, Moore tries to hunt down Roger Smith, then CEO of General Motors, whose disastrous decision to shut down GM's auto plants in Moore's hometown of Flint had pushed thousands of people into poverty overnight. Moore visits the GM headquarters in Detroit, a yacht club, and then an athletic center, but is denied access to Smith each time. He then attends a GM shareholder meeting disguised as a shareholder, but Moore's ruse is caught, and he does not get to engage with Smith. Finally, in the film's climax, Moore confronts Smith at an annual Christmas event in Detroit. The two meet face to face after Moore successfully hounds Smith, urging the CEO to come to Flint. Smith, though, rejects the offer, apologizing for his inability to make the trip. The film ends with the statement, "This film cannot be shown within the city of Flint. All the movie theaters have closed." In pestering Smith and holding GM's power to account, Moore earned international acclaim, and his film Roger and Me received the Best Documentary Award from the National Board of Review. And, lest I forget, for his efforts in asking questions of someone who was morally obligated to answer them, Michael Moore wasn't banned. Hello and welcome to Souliloquy, with me, Priyam Marik. Today I have a mixed bag of topics to discuss, but there really is only one place to start. I'm sure most of you listening to this are well aware of the saga involving comedian Kunal Kamra and the bans imposed on him by several Indian airlines. Now, I don't want to talk about whether the ban is legitimate or not. That is clear to anybody who wishes to think. I'm not interested in Arnab Goswami's response or the lack of it, although I am curious what Arnab was watching on the screen during Kunal's monologue. I don't think it was Roger and Me. I'm not surprised either by the government's alacrity in condemning Kunal. I mean, what else do you expect? But there have been a couple of things I've been thinking about. First is, what if Kunal Kamra had a different surname? Perhaps Imam? Would the ban have been the least of his punishments? Would he have been able to get back to stand-ups at all? The second thought is more encouraging. The fact that we have comedians like Kunal Kamra and Veer Das, who also has an excellent show out on Netflix recently, who do political satire and who, through their stand-up comic culture, are taking up the mantle of the fourth estate in India, asking questions of people who hold positions of power and who are morally obligated to answer those questions, which essentially people like Arnab Goswami should be doing. So you now have the rise of stand-up comedy replacing the largely subservient media in holding power to account. Humor is a powerful tool, for it penetrates the imagination better than most other things. And the politicians who actively try to undermine or eliminate this humor are essentially intellectually enslaving the masses. In the 1960s, British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan used to attend theatre caricatures of his own self, performed by then popular theatre group Beyond the Fringe. So essentially, you had 3 or 4 men on stage who would be criticizing Macmillan's policies, his statements in the media, his general personality. And then there would be the British Prime Minister sitting in the audience, laughing along at jokes made at his own expense. Can you imagine Narendra Modi walking into a Kunal Kamra stand-up and applauding the jibes at Godi media and the BJP's nefarious policies? Harold Macmillan's justification was, let them laugh at you or they will ignore you. I guess Modi believes, don't let them laugh at you so that they cannot ignore you. There are many things about Modi and the BJP that I despise, some of which are ingenuously cunning. Take, for instance, the way the BJP has appropriated Mahatma Gandhi, adapting Gandhi's obsession with cleanliness and rural planning, all the while ditching his secular vision. This cherry-picking in creating narratives is metaphorically captured by the BJP campaign posters that show only Gandhi's spectacles, without the face on which the glasses rest. which I guess is quite a literal as well as symbolic effacement of Gandhi. But it's not just the BJP who are guilty of appropriating Gandhi. We've been doing the same as a nation for close to a century. It is unfortunate and, quite frankly, baffling how little discourse there is on Gandhi's contentious views on caste, brahmacharya, and female empowerment. I won't go into the details about them, but I would recommend, if you want to find out more, Arundhati Roy's book, The Doctor and the Saint. What I would do instead today is quote a passage authored by Gandhi himself, issued as an entreaty to British citizens in the 1930s, to let the Nazis, and I quote, "Take possession of your beautiful island, with your many beautiful buildings. You will give all these, but neither your souls nor your minds. If these gentlemen choose to occupy your homes, you will vacate them. If they do not give you free passage out, you will allow yourself, man, woman, and child, to be slaughtered." Unquote. Gandhi's moral heroism not only appears fragile when one comes across words like these, but it tells us, more importantly, that the Mahatma was, like many of us, a man of contradictions, of inchoate, ambivalent opinions. Perhaps a good starting point to addressing Gandhi's legacy would be to change how we address him, and like Muhammad Ali Jinnah used to, simply call him Mr. Gandhi instead. But Gandhi is far from the only public figure whose greatness we collectively take for granted. Another conspicuous example that comes to mind is that of Mother Teresa and the unadulterated veneration she receives for her magnanimity. But in reality, she also stood for several problematic ideas. Among these problematic notions were Mother Teresa's vehement opposition to abortion, the stance against a woman's complete authority of her own body. There was also the fact that she allegedly encouraged members of her order to secretly baptize patients on their deathbeds, irrespective of their religion. Susan Shields, a former member of the Missionaries of Charity, writes, and I quote, "Sisters were to ask each person in danger of death if he wanted a ticket to heaven. An affirmative reply was to mean to consent to baptism. The sister was then to pretend that she was just cooling the patient's head with a wet cloth, while in fact she was baptizing him, saying quietly the necessary words. Secrecy was important so that it would not come to be known that Mother Teresa's sisters were baptizing Hindus and Muslims." Unquote. Shocking, isn't it? More shocking, perhaps, that such comments rarely ever make it to the mainstream. But then again, mothers and fathers have always been glorified beyond the pale in India. Something about the mention of mothers and fathers makes me think of food. I guess the link is obvious. An element of Gandhian philosophy that I recently discovered is Gandhi's relationship with food, or in this case, raw food. Now, in 1893, Mahatma Gandhi started what he called his vital experiments with food, which began with him consuming 2 tablespoons of wheat, 1 of peas, 1 of rice, 2 of sultanas, which are basically seedless grapes, around 20 small nuts, 2 oranges, and a cup of cocoa before breakfast. A number of these items were soaked overnight, but none was cooked. Throughout his life, Gandhi frequently resorted to spells of raw food, whenever he was eating at all, that is. He believed that eating raw food was healthier, consumed less time in preparation, and brought man closer to nature. But when I think of it, isn't cooking an essential component of our civilization, one of the central forces that shape our culture? British literary legend Samuel Johnson's definition of man was that of a cooking animal. And many social commentators have also eulogized the concept of cooking as a harbinger of human civility. Do you think culture can be celebrated, even transmitted, with the help of raw food? Can you think of any raw food item that exemplifies that? The answer is sushi. For my part, I have never tried sushi, but this quaint and apparently sumptuous delicacy has long been an agent of gastrodiplomacy. In other words, putting your politics where your mouth is. The best instance of this came in the so-called Sushi summit between Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his, at the time, sane American counterpart, President Barack Obama, during Obama's visit to Japan in 2014. The two leaders dined at Sukiyabashi Jiro, one of Japan's leading sushi restaurants, discussing mutual friendships and fissures over fish. The meeting ended with Obama exclaiming to reporters, "There's some good sushi right there." Soon enough, there was some good stuff for Japan too, far beyond gastronomic pleasures from America. The global reach of sushi and its soft power in projecting a comforting image of Japan subverts the Gandhian idea of raw food as an instrument of oneness with nature and consolidation of rural communities. In the era of hyperglobalization, we cannot underestimate the soft power of food. Personally speaking, I have been fascinated at how Indian foods wield their cultural currency in the United Kingdom. Where I stay in Brighton, there are almost as many food joints serving Indian tikka masala as there are selling the quintessentially British fish and chips. No matter how familiar the Brits get with Indians, to most of them, Indian food still seems to retain the charm of the exotic. The reverse, however, for better or worse, does not hold true, with British food still a long way from inundating shelves of Indian restaurants and groceries. Which, I suppose, is a good thing for New India, given the predominance of beef in traditional British cuisine. Sometimes with the surge of cow vigilantes in India, I often wonder how a man who asks to be served 15 to 20 oxen at once would fare in the beefed up intolerance. But perhaps my worries are futile. Perhaps he would be just fine, for he has no surname, has his details documented in 4 heavy books that are thousands of years old, and is commonly known as Indra.